Hello HP Touchpad users, great news! Today I'm going to show you how to install Android the super easy way with Jcsullins' latest and greatest creation, the Touchpad Toolbox. This revolutionary new tool will make installing the latest builds super easy, so just sit back, relax, and learn how to do it for yourself. First off, we must give credit to Jcsullins. We're going to go visit his thread right here at the very top of the page in the first link. Jcsullins, aka Jcsullins in the forums, has brought us this incredible one-of-a-kind tool to fix up all the installation problems with the latest data media Kitkat builds, and it will even install some of the older builds as well. It's being actively developed by Jcsullins, and we should see some updates in the future. Big thanks to him. It's an absolutely fantastic tool. Thank you very much. Now in my guide, I've gone in a little more detail about Jcsullins' great information here. I basically made an idiot's guide, if you will, to make it all nice, step-by-step, user-friendly, and all the information will be laid out. Of course, how to keep WebOS, how to get back to your old setup, and keep WebOS will all be detailed in the guide, and all the ROMs, recoveries, and GApps that are compatible will be listed. I've tested them all out, and I'll update that list as newer versions of the Touchpad Toolbox are released. Let's check it out here. Now we're going to start with a little Q&A, so if you want to skip ahead, just look for a time code in the video's description or right underneath it. What is the Touchpad Toolbox? The Touchpad Toolbox, or TP Toolbox, is an easy-to-use and reliable tool that replaces previous methods of installing Android on the touchpad. This excellent tool, created by Jcsullins, aka Jcsullins in the forums, has dramatically simplified the installation of the latest data media Kitkat builds. The TP Toolbox can also install a few older non-data media builds, but it's currently limited at this time. Check back later and the list may have grown. In addition, it gives users the ability to completely remove WebOS if desired. It will generally replace the following tools: the Acme installers, the Acme uninstaller, but there's a little star beside it because the note in this guide will need it to keep WebOS installed. Various methods of resizing the partition/volumes means the same things. Various methods of reflashing the A6 firmware, which can now be done from the Touchpad Toolbox, and various methods of completely wiping and recreating volumes. Much like we used to use the Tailor app, we can now do all of these things from the Touchpad Toolbox. What is a data media build? Previously, on the HP Touchpad, Android and WebOS shared SD card space in the emulated media partition. This was the space you saw when transferring data via the USB cable. Stored all your media like music, movies, and pictures. Data media builds separate the Android and WebOS space by emulating a second extension 4 SD card in the data partition, the place where your app data was stored separate from the SD card media partition. With this setup, the data partition now becomes the main place where the apps and user files, music, pictures, etc. are stored. The leftover space in the media partition is now separate and only used by the Touchpad Toolbox or WebOS. The media partition volume will only be left with a small amount of free space, and the majority will be given to the Android data partition. If you keep WebOS, the space will be around 1.2 gigabytes, give or take. I had version 3.0.5 installed with tons of freeware and apps, pretty much everything you could get. If you remove WebOS, it'll be only around 600 to 800 megabytes of space. So the total cost for WebOS and all your freeware and apps is somewhere between 500 and 600 megabytes. After you install Android, you'll need to boot into WebOS to access that media SD card space, or use the Jcsullins Signage and Mod 11 build. The Evervolve Data Media Kitkat build also shows both SD cards when accessing it from the computer. Following these instructions will leave WebOS perfectly intact or completely remove it, depending on your personal preference. What are the advantages and changes for data media builds? Data media builds change the default partition layout to more efficiently use the available space. You get a larger area for storing your apps and mount an emulated extension 4 SD card on the data partition. The extension 4 doesn't suffer from the 4 gigabyte size limitation that the older FAT partition suffered from, so you can use larger files and gives us more free space for installing large apps and games. Now, performance is supposed to be better on this extension 4 SD card, at least according to the definitions that I have read. Now, the most important advantage for HP Touchpad users is the updated kernels, 3.x kernels. We have either a 3.0 kernel or a 3.4 kernel, depending on which build you're trying out. The updated kernels more efficiently communicates and allocates resources between the software and the hardware. You'll notice that the touchpad is more responsive, noticeably more snappy. It just runs better overall. The Wi-Fi disconnects and connects faster. You'll notice all sorts of little improvements from this. Next, how can I go back to my old setup? Now there's two options here. I don't want to keep WebOS installed, or I want to keep WebOS installed. Now the Touchpad Toolbox has the ability to completely remove WebOS and free up a little extra space, or if you're a little attached to WebOS like myself and you want to keep it around, you have both options right here, so come check that out if you want to go back to your old setup. And finally, how can I check my current version of Android, and how can I check my current partition size? We get the great free app, Quick System Info Pro, and it'll show you all your partition sizes, what's free. And then if you want to check your version of Android, you open up the tablet, you go to your settings, about tablet, and look at the Android version, and also have your version of CyanogenMod or Android OpenCANG project or whatever you're running listed there as well. 1. Getting started, requirements and preparation. A. You must have the Novacom software installed on your PC before running Jcsullins Touchpad Toolbox. Download, extract, and install the appropriate version of the Novacom software here for your OS. Windows 32, Windows 64, Linux 32, Linux 64, and Mac. Additionally, you can use the Novacom Universal Installer to install the correct version for your OS, but you also need to have Java installed from this link here. Totally up to you. B. Backup, backup, backup. Using the Complete Data Reset feature of the Touchpad Toolbox or the Erase USB Drive feature from WebOS will absolutely delete everything on your touchpad, including the SD card. So make sure you have your personal data files, music, pictures, videos, everything backed up on your computer. Don't forget to move those Nandroid backups onto your PC. By default, Clockwork Mod backups are located in SD card, Clockwork Mod, backup. C. Make sure your tablet is fully charged before starting any install procedure on the touchpad. Running out of batteries during an install procedure will ruin the process and could possibly damage the device. Don't take a risk you don't have to. Make sure you've got a good charge, at least 70 to 80% minimum. 2. An optional step. Time to choose the fate of WebOS. Note, if you wish to completely remove WebOS, just skip right to step number 3. Before running the Touchpad Toolbox, you should decide whether or not you wish to completely remove WebOS. Even if you remove WebOS, there will still be around 600 to 800 megabytes of space left over where it used to be on the media partition. That extra space will only be used for the initial install of your ROMs via the Touchpad Toolbox. This space will not be accessible from some ROMs and will only be used by the Touchpad Toolbox or WebOS if you choose to keep it. So you must make a personal decision about WebOS's usefulness to you. Would you rather have extra free space or a second OS that is unique but not well supported? On my 32 gigabyte touchpad, I have a maximum of around 27.5 gigs available to use. With Android, WebOS, with lots of freeware and apps installed, and the free space required to use the Touchpad Toolbox, which is 600 megabytes plus, it takes up around 1.2 or 1.17 gigabytes. If you remove WebOS, the remaining media space will be around 600 to 800 megabytes of space. So the total cost for WebOS is only about 500 to 600 megabytes. You will need to boot into WebOS to access its SD card media space, or use the Jcsullins CyanogenMod 11 or the Evervolve Data Media Kitkat ROMs. Personally, I like WebOS and think having a dual boot device is one of the unique and intriguing features of owning an HP touchpad. The choice is yours. Note, if you remove WebOS and want to add it back again, you will need to do the following steps laid out by Jcsullins right here. Click this little link, and then there's a post by him that explains these steps. Right here, there's quite a few steps actually. To keep WebOS will only require 2 more steps, or you can do these 9 steps here. Just a little food for thought right there. If you wish to keep WebOS installed, then do the following steps. A. Uninstall Android and clean up your SD card. Uninstall Android completely by using the Acme Uninstaller 2. I have a full instructional video here and in the hyperlink here. After uninstalling Android, you'll automatically reboot into WebOS and be ready for the next step. Right here, I have a short version of my install notes. 1, you'll need to have Novacom installed just like you did in step 1 here. 2, you'll need to place the Acme Uninstaller file that you can download from the link here into the Novacom folder. The location of this can vary depending on your operating system. The Windows location is here, and the Mac location is here. Download and place it into either of those directories. 3, boot the tablet into WebOS recovery mode and attach it with the USB cable to your PC. Here are the instructions for getting into WebOS recovery mode. If you already have Android installed, you can simply hold down the power button, reboot, and select WebOS recovery mode when the MooBoot menu comes up. Use the volume and home buttons to navigate and select. If you're in WebOS, you can reboot the touchpad via the WebOS reset options located at Launcher, Settings, Device Info, Reset Options, and Restart. Hold down the volume button while the touchpad reboots itself. Once you see the large USB symbol on the screen, just plug it into your PC with the USB cable. Now, to run the Acme Uninstaller 2, I have some batch files for all the Acme installers, all the different versions here, and you can simply download these. It's a .bat file, and you just double-click the remove cm.bat file from the folder, download it from here, extract it, and this just makes it a little easier. B. Now that we're booted into WebOS, we're going to wipe our SD card before the Touchpad Toolbox can set up our various partition sizes. Completely wipe your SD card from WebOS by going to Launcher, Settings, Device Info, Reset Options, and select Erase USB Drive. The touchpad will reboot itself and all your data will be completely erased. But note, this will not affect your WebOS setup, apps, or freeware you have installed. Now we have successfully preserved our setup of WebOS and can move on to step number 3. 3. Enter WebOS recovery mode and connect the touchpad to your PC with the USB cable. Note, even if you choose to remove WebOS, the WebOS recovery mode still exists as a part of the bootloader. Don't worry, it'll still be there. Here we have 2 options for entering WebOS recovery mode. It'll depend on whether or not we chose to keep WebOS or remove it. How to enter WebOS recovery mode from Android. If you currently have Android installed, you can just hold down the power button, choose reboot, and select the WebOS recovery mode using the volume buttons to go up and down and the home button to select it from the MooBoot menu. Once you've done that, connect the HP Touchpad to your PC via the USB cable. Or, how to enter WebOS recovery mode from WebOS. Reboot the HP Touchpad via the WebOS options menu located at Launcher, Settings, Device Info, Reset Options, and choose Restart. Hold down the volume up button while the touchpad reboots, and release it once you see that large USB symbol on the screen. Now you can connect the touchpad to your computer via the USB cable. 4. Download and extract the latest version of Jcsullins Touchpad Toolbox to your PC. Click on the first link here to go to Jcsullins download folder for the Touchpad Toolbox. At the time I'm making this video, version 40 is the latest version, but you'll want to download whatever version is the latest version at the time you're watching this. Simply click it to download, and it can take a moment to download things from the GU server, so be patient. Once it finishes downloading, you'll place the .zip file onto your desktop. There it is, and you'll need to extract the files. Extract the folder and open it up. Now here is how we run the Touchpad Toolbox. Now that our touchpad is plugged in WebOS recovery mode with the USB cable, all we need to do is run on a Windows-based computer, double-click this batch file and run it. And on a Linux or Mac machine, double-click this sh file here. Once you double click this, it will start up. You'll see some text scrolling across your touchpad, and we'll continue the installation over there. 5. Using the Touchpad Toolbox to install Android. The Touchpad Toolbox consists of 3 different panels. 1, the main menu on the left-hand side. We can navigate it using the volume up and volume down button. We'll make our selection by pressing the home button. Next, we have the help pane here, which displays all our helpful information, detailed information about what we're doing. Make sure you read everything that comes up in that menu. And 3, the menu at the bottom, is for the output. All the information will come up about the details about what's being done to the tablet, and you can follow along there. 5A, optional, the complete data reset. This will remove both WebOS and Android and delete everything on the tablet. Before running this, make sure you've got everything, absolutely everything, backed up before you run the procedure, and all your Nandroid backups in case you want to restore later. Next, make sure you have a reasonably good charge. I've got about 86%, that's okay, because this could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes depending on how much stuff you have on the tablet. Don't interrupt it in any way. Don't try to restart the device. Just wait until it completes. Once you're ready to go, once you're sure you want to do this, press the home button, and it'll ask you, yes, do I really want to do this? Big warnings, exclamations. Be sure you don't want to keep WebOS if you're going to do this. Select yes. Select yes again. Completely, absolutely, positively sure. Are you sure? One more time. 3rd time's the charm. Select yes again, and you'll begin the complete data reset. Again, be patient and wait. It could take anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. We'll just time elapse until we're done and complete. 5B, installing Android onto the HP Touchpad. Now that we've either run the complete data reset from the TP Toolbox or wiped the USB drive from WebOS, we're now ready to install Android. All our data has been backed up. Simply select Install Android and hit the home button. Now this will mount the media partition to our computer. We'll need to be connected with our USB cable, of course. And once this completes, we'll just start over there. Now the media partition will be mounted and show up on my PC. Open it up and look for the TT install folder. Open up this folder. This is where we will need to place our ROM, GApps, and recovery files. Now we have to use specific ones. Now check my guide, and here you'll find the convenient links and all the pertinent information for each ROM. I've got them nice and laid out for you. Now this is just the ROM. You'll need the ROM file. Today we'll be using Jcsullins Great ROM here. Everything is fully functional, and he has a very decent battery drain during sleep. Select your ROM, then select your acceptable 4.4 Kitkat GApps package and your supported data media recoveries. You only need one of each of these files. Now completely separate, don't mix and match these files, is the older legacy ROMs, GApps, and recoveries. So you can also install a few older builds like this as well. Now this list will grow in the future as more ROMs become supported. Check back here to see the latest ROMs that have been tested. One of my favorites is Shumash's Schizoid Kang right here. It's a great ROM. He's got his newer one on the way up above. Simply download the legacy ROM, GApps, and supported Clockwork mod, and place all 3 in the folder if you wish to install the older legacy builds. But do not mix and match the latest Kitkat builds with the legacy builds. Must be completely separate or the Touchpad Toolbox won't run. To get your ROM, simply click on the link, visit the developers forum thread, have a nice thorough look at their information, give them a thanks for all their hard work. In this particular one you can find the ROM, all the supported recoveries, and the GApps. But I'd recommend sticking to everything that's in the guide. These are all in the guide, by the way. But just to make sure that everything is working properly with the Touchpad Toolbox, currently only certain things are supported, so make sure you check my guide here. Now that we've got our ROM downloaded, our GApps, and our recovery, we can place them all into the TT install folder. Here's my Jcsullins CyanogenMod 11 ROM. Here's my supported Kitkat GApps. And I'm going to be using the Phil's Clockwork Mod Recovery, the supported Data Media Recovery. Transfer all those 3 files into the TT install folder. Now you may notice that MooBoot is missing. Don't worry about that. There's no need to place it in here. It's already part of the Touchpad Toolbox, and it will be automatically installed. So once all these are done, refer back to the touchpad and unmount the media partition before going to the next step. Now that all our files have finished transferring over to the touchpad, use the volume button to select Unmount Media Volume and select it with the Home button. The TP Toolbox will now inspect the files and make sure that they're compatible. Based on the files, it will choose a volume partition layout. Here you can see the layout for my new partitions. Use the volume button to select Yes, and you'll begin the procedure. Please be patient. Do not restart the device or interrupt it in any way. Now the partition layout is complete. Don't press anything, just wait, and the tablet will reboot itself into your recovery and install the ROM and GApps file. If you accidentally exit, you'll need to again reboot to complete it. Here we are in Phil's Clockwork Mod Recovery. My ROM is automatically being installed right now. Next, my GApps package will be flashed. Please wait patiently and do not interrupt this process. Once it completes, it'll automatically reboot itself and start Android. Here we have my GApps package automatically being installed. Here I am rebooting for the first time. You'll note MooBoot is already installed. Congratulations, here we are booting CyanogenMod for the first time, installed the super easy way. Now we're going to head back to my computer, talk about extra uses for the TP Toolbox, future developments, and of course troubleshooting. Extra uses for the Touchpad Toolbox. You can mount the media volume. This will allow you access to the media partition from your PC, just like we did with the TT install folder when we placed the files in there. Only a couple ROMs will be able to see this from the computer while connected in Android. You can also get to it from WebOS if you still have it installed. Reflash the A6 firmware. This helps to keep the battery drain during sleep nice and low. Users experiencing sudden drops in battery life should also run this. You can monitor this yourself with the great free app Battery Monitor Widget. Check it out in the Play Store. There's a nice hyperlink there. Get it installed. Go to the History tab at the top and click the little percentage. It'll look like this, and that'll just change to MA so you can follow along with our rating system in our guide. Resize Android volumes. Much like the WebOS freeware app Taylor, the Touchpad Toolbox can now resize the partitions for you. It's nice and easy to use. Check it out. Repair Android volumes. The Touchpad Toolbox can do a file system check, which will determine if there's any non-trivial errors on the system. If there are, it will attempt to fix those errors. Create WebOS volumes. If you want to reinstall WebOS following a full data reset, then you'll need to run this prior to running the WebOS Doctor. You'll need to follow Jcsullins' full instructions here. There's a nice little link, click on it, and here's all the information about how to reinstall WebOS onto the HP Touchpad. Future developments and limitations. Currently, only touchpad Wi-Fi models are supported. The 4G models can't currently be used with the Touchpad Toolbox. However, Evervolve has a great 4G build that you can get right here. You follow the links and follow the instructions in my guide on how to get that installed. I've got all the download links in there, so just follow the link here if you've got a 4G tablet. Currently, only certain ROMs are supported. This is kind of limited for now with the older ROMs, but everything is listed in this guide that currently works, and I'll update it in the future when the toolbox gets updated, so just check back and I'll have all the ROMs listed for you. In the future, there may be some development to have the Touchpad Toolbox integrated into that MooBoot menu, so we can simply start it up from there and we won't need to run it from our PC anymore. That's a future development and will be great to see. Troubleshooting. Here you can find a helpful list of tips for all your touchpad woes. Check the pull-down menus for complete information. Here's the FAQ list for all the frequently asked questions. One of the most asked questions is how to get flash support on Android 4.4 Kitkat devices. Well, here's the information how to do that. Download the hacked player, install that, get the Dolphin browser with the Dolphin browser Jetpack plugin. All the links are right here. Next, one of the other frequently asked questions is how do I get Netflix to work? Well, you have to follow the instructions in this thread here. You have to probably keep the older version as well, so just check the instructions there and see what people are saying. And a whole bunch of other problems solved, so don't forget to check out these lists. There's a lot to go through. All your bricking in boot loop help and fixes as well, where to go, what to do, links to all the threads you'll need to see. Very thorough information, so don't forget to check out all these pull-down menus for all kinds of help and fixes. If you keep WebOS installed, for instance, I have some performance tweaks that'll help make it run a little faster, and you can customize it a little more. Check it out. Last but certainly not least, we want to donate to the developers. Once in a while, we want to show our appreciation to these hardworking people that keep development alive on the HP Touchpad. We have just incredible things happening. We've got the latest versions of Android, Kitkat 4.4.4 with the latest kernels, Jcsullins' latest innovation with the Touchpad Toolbox that's making everything super easy. Just great to see these incredible things continue and just keep getting better. With this tablet, who knows how far we can go if we support our developers, buy them a cup of coffee, glass of wine, nice cold beer, whatever your preference, and just say thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to see the latest updates with the HP Touchpad. I'll be making videos about all the current Kitkat ROMs. You can check that out. I'll be adding videos to the guide, so you can check out the links. Subscribe to my channel to see all the latest information and innovations with the Touchpad Toolbox. Thanks for watching, everybody.